they were giving me everything I didn't order and then saying I was unreasonable because the thing that I
Wow.
initially came to get, I didn't get. So it's like
Oh,
I came for a steak and potatoes. I paid for it in full. Everyone else got what they came to get and what they paid for. And now you're telling me I'm unreasonable. And if I'm unhappy, I can leave without the thing that I paid in full for.
wow.
That is the best example I have ever
Because
heard.
I'm passionate about my restaurant experience.
Yeah, right.
But that
And
is
I
that
told her
feeling is
that,
so
and she
real.
was like, "Wow, I never thought about it like that."
Wow.
I still didn't get the promotion, but she understood what I was saying, you know? And it's unfortunate because I should not have had to leave to get what I paid for.
Hello and welcome to the Bold Black Girls Podcast. I'm Aries
And I am Kim.
and I'm super excited.
We have a special guest that we have been wanting on the podcast since we started the podcast.
Yes. She was at our first event that we had last year. We highlighted her, gave away some of her specialty to someone. I can't remember who we gave it to.
It was Erica.
Erica. There you go. That's our one of our. This is our one of our faithful listeners. She always commenting on stuff.
I love Erica.
It's so interesting. So we're honoring Toni Howard-Lowe as our Bold Black Girl of the Month. And as we are getting ready to really just, dig deep with her, I'm like, she has so many nuggets that we were like, girl, we need this, we need a whole podcast, we need all these things. So we're just going to let the Lord use us today and go forth. So Kim, we'll let you go ahead and start us off.
Awesome.
First of all, wait, can we talk about how we met Toni?
That's what I was getting ready to say. So I met Toni because of her son. Right.
Yeah.
So Kiara was working at the daycare that you were bringing your son when he was a little baby. That's how I first met Toni. And then I want to say
same with me though, but that was because my mom was working at the daycare. And she was like, and it happened where I feel like it was something else. And then she was like, this girl, you need to meet her. She's moving her and this, and
then and let me tell you, Eris's mom is a whole sugar cookie. Like, okay, I love me some Miss Janet. And she was like, I'm gonna tell my daughter to reach out to you. I was like, okay. And so it's just so interesting how our paths crossed. And then we had so many mutual friends too. Yes. So that was so interesting too. And then of course, Kim is a sugar cookie by herself. So she like, when she meets you, she like, okay, you gonna know me. I'm Kim. We're gonna be friends. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, it's normally I don't meet people. Most people that I meet them more in a corporate setting. I don't normally meet people in like my personal life here in Dallas that kind of become, a professional ties too, it's like either or,
Right.
So it was so interesting that you guys are like, when I say on the scene, I know if something is popping in Dallas, I am like, let me see what Kim and Aries doing, because they going, I know it's lit. When I tell y'all at everything, I'm like, how do y'all get into all of this stuff? Like, it was crazy.
I would see Toni. I went to a networking event. Like, I'm not even in HR, but because I love to network, I decided, I'm going to go to this HR networking event. There's Toni. She's the president. I'm like, I know Toni. Toni, you didn't tell me you were the president. Toni was everywhere. She is like literally the Carla Harris, the modern day Carla Harris. You don't know who Carla?
That's some big shoes, man. That's some big shoes.
But it's real though.
But I'll take a young Carla Harris. I'll take that. I'll take it.
And then Toni, you had a conference that you put on, PowHER. And so I attended that conference. Now I was going to quite a few conferences. Went to your conference and I was like, this is the real deal. Not only is the content quality, but the food is excellent.
Ooh,
you know, y'all now listen, y'all know I get down with food. You know, I think look, when you put the party together, it's sort of like a wedding. It's like you gotta have a little good music, a little food, and great content. You know.
Oh wait, and the sponsors that she had. Because I went last. So was that last year? Last January, Toni had called and I was a moderator for one of your. Was that the year before?
It was the year before.
What is this? Okay, and then moderator for one of the panels. So this was my first experience, you know, coming in. Honestly, that was my first moderator. I had never moderated anything before that.
Yeah.
So that was like a step out on faith for myself. I had just started the podcast like a little bit before that. So it was like, okay,
you were like, okay, so what you want me to do? And I'm like, you got it. You got it. I know you got it.
Exactly. Yes. So then I get there and I'm like, oh, this is legit. Like, this is like full products, you know, of stuff in the goodie bags and makeup artists, and you can get your makeup done.
Quality. You can get your resume looked at. It was everything. I was like, she touched everything. There is nothing that I can even suggest. It was 100% legit.
Yes, it was great.
You guys.
It's right in line with your brand of who you are. You just you do it top notch. So we're here. We're glad to have you and honor you as our Bold Black Girl of the Month to close us out of 2020. So we've been saving this one because we were like, we got to get her before this year is over.
I was starting to get jealous. I was like, listen, I see y'all taking all my PowHER Moves, folks. They ain't had me on yet. I ain't gonna say nothing.
Yes. We have to save the queen for last, right?
I was like, we get in 2020. Now.
We saved the best for last because we were like, Toni has to come on. And so this was just a perfect time, Toni. And we really appreciate it. So for those who are new to who this new modern day Carla Harris is, can you share a little bit about yourself and who you are? Because you don't hail from Texas. Actually, none of us are from Texas. You're from Tampa. So can you high level elaborate who you are?
Yeah, man, I'm from the blue part of Florida, y'all. Dragging Florida, okay? We'll be dragging Florida. I'm from the blue part. But yeah, no, I'm a Florida girl, born and raised, you know, and many of us are transients to Dallas and live here in Dallas. Most people know me by my moniker online as the Corporate T. Which really started as a way for me to provide insights before it was cool, right? Now I look up and there's like a career girl, career guy every 5 seconds. But there was a time where my phone, you know, I've been an HR practitioner for 18 years. And my phone wouldn't stop ringing based on the experiences that mostly people of color and women were having in corporate America. So it started out with like, you know, just me sharing insights. And from there, those insights caught traction. People are like, can you write? You know, and so I wrote for brands like Black Enterprise and, you know, Forbes, and provided my insights. And then, you know, was speaking, right? And it just, one thing has led to another, and it has turned into like a full scale business for me, alongside my corporate career as well. But really, I really am just a corporate tea, like a connector of good, freshly brewed advice on how to navigate the corporate world. Yeah.
I love that.
I love the name.
I do too, because it's so perfect.
I thought it was a little too, you know, in the beginning, but you know what? People love it. People love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's perfect for the culture. Because you know, we need the tea. We got to get the tea on things. So your advice and all that definitely gave that, and obviously you have lived experience, you know, so that along with your expertise, I mean, that's like the winning combination, anyways. So now that we have you on the hot seat, because you're always the one getting to ask people questions and give advice and all that stuff. So just to get more personal of who you are. We know you're married, you have a child.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you're striving for? Like, what does it look like? Because we see you out here, we see you doing your thing. You got a lot going on. What's some of your I guess personal goals or things that what are you seeing as far as a vision for you?
Who am I striving to be in the world? Man,
Yes.
that's a big question, right? Um, that has evolved over time so much, right? I say this a little tongue in cheek, but um knowing that this is like a big thing to say, but also knowing that I truly mean it. Like I really am striving to be sort of like the Harriet Tubman of corporate America. Like, I really want to um do the tough work, right? And to bring my people along, right? I think I know it's not like a small notion to say, right? And I'm certainly not comparing myself to Harriet Tubman, but I think I don't take that um I don't take that legacy for granted, right? I think that that torch has to be carried forward. And there's a big push in so many lanes, but I think um the game is rigged. And
It really
if
is.
you right. And so my new mantra for this year, I had watched Stockton on My Mind, which is an amazing documentary, a Netflix documentary about Michael Tubbs, who is the youngest Black mayor of Stockton, California, which is his hometown. And inside the documentary, and he's talking about kind of reforming his city and really kind of breaking down systemic, challenges within the city in every lane: education, homelessness, all these different things. And he kept saying something throughout the series. He said, "Upset the setup. You have to upset the setup." And so that has been my new mantra. I'm a corporate cool kid who's just trying to upset the setup, right? Um,
Right.
because the system is broken. And there I was, sharing to you guys earlier, that I feel like there are so many things I've had to unlearn. I think my parents were well intentioned in terms of what they wanted me to have. But I think they were given that information in a system of systemic racism, and so they taught me things that would help me function in the system that they learned. But what it really did, when you talk about working twice as harder, and you get this good job and you stay on this good job no matter how they treat you, all these different things, right? It perpetuated burnout and a lack of mental wellness for myself. And also imposter syndrome around me being worthy enough, right? And so for me, I think the corporate tea really is about how do I help people sort of reckon with their experience in a way that helps them navigate this game in a way that benefits them.
Wow.
Girl, that was a whole word. And when I tell you I'm a member of the church, so I'm following you, Harriet. These are the things that I'm telling you, because that whole experience that you mentioned. And when we talked earlier, I was saying this, that I was living the same way, and I had even probably a lot less of the education around what was rigged in the game.
Yeah.
And as I started learning what it was, that's how my thing, scratching and surviving, kind of came. It's like I was literally scratching and surviving because I didn't have the knowledge, and I thought I was by myself. So it's like
Yeah.
you get empowered being around women like you who are able to say, "Hey, this is the system, that we're all
Yeah.
in." And now all that
Yeah.
imposter syndrome you're feeling it makes sense because this is what you're in. So we got to find a way to get out of that. So I appreciate that you are trying to at least open the door and educate others so that they know, and also disrupt it, right? Like you just said.
Yeah.
Disrupt that so that it doesn't have to be that way for Kim's daughter, who's about to be 21 years
Well,
old,
Right.
and that's
already
the next
experienced-
question.
She's already
Yeah.
experienced this, you know, in her first, you know, her real first kind of corporate role.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
And that was actually going to be my question for you, Toni. So I have attended and had the pleasure of attending, I think, all of your conferences, maybe except for one. And I noticed how the last conference, you put a pivot on it, you put a twist, and it was really about mental health and
Yeah.
wellness. We talked about securing the bag, going get your money, but it's like you said, we have burnout doing that. And I noticed that non-blacks, they take time off. If
Oh,
they feel
yeah.
like they are having burnout, and just like Aries explained, my daughter had an experience recently with corporate, and things have changed, right?
Yeah.
In terms of what my mother told me, like I actually
Yeah.
changed jobs after 20 years. And my mother literally said something to me like I was a slave, like, you gonna go to another job? And I'm like, yes, it's
Yeah.
okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
And so what advice would you give either to your younger self or to other young Black girls who are coming up in terms of trying to not necessarily secure the bag in corporate America, but as they're navigating through that life in corporate?
Um, I think for me it would be like trust your gut, right? I think one of the disservices that we've done, and one thing I will say about young people, particularly like Zentennials,
Mm-hmm.
they got it.
Mhm,
They got
do.
something we didn't have, right? I
do.
mean, they don't care about your corporate company,
They
your
don't.
benefits. They will wing it, okay? Listen, they will TikTok their way
Yes.
into a check,
Start
okay?
a YouTube
So
channel. Yes.
right, yeah. So I think it's something that what I am happy to know is that I don't have to give the same advice that I needed anymore, because I think that their access to other ways to sustain um and to get what they need is just
Totally different.
totally different, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I think I would have told my younger self, like, you're enough, right? I think I spent the top half of my career needing to be affirmed, wanting validation, being in power struggles to be seen, right? Um, and what I really needed to do was see myself,
Wow.
Yes.
you know? And now I'm at a point in my career where it's like, and I said this on another event, and then this girl was like, girl, you need to make a shirt. But I was like, I'm no longer going to work. You cannot be the benefactor of my Black brilliance if you don't treat me well.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like there is a reckoning that's happening, right? Where
Absolutely.
we realize our worth. You see Black women exiting corporate and becoming entrepreneurs in large groups. I was on a podcast recently, which has made a lot of, I mean, huge deal, sponsored by Arizona and American Banker, and talking about access denied in the financial services industries. And they brought me on as kind of a career expert to talk about Black professionals navigating the financial services space. And one of the things that I said on that podcast, it's like, listen, what Black women are showing us now, and it goes back to just like my inspiration around Harriet Tubman, is like, you either make room at your table or we will build our own and become your competitor. And I think
Yep.
that the beauty in all of this is that I think there is a reckoning that everyone is shifting to know that, like, I ain't got to deal with this. I don't have to
Yes.
do this,
Yes.
So my younger self would just, or my older self would tell my younger self, or even a young person, like, you are enough,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
I
love
mean,
it.
that like that hits because I think as I talk to more people who are kind of doing this work and reaffirming everything that I've always felt inside that I just didn't know that I needed to hear. That is so powerful. It's still powerful to me as a 41-year-old woman, to continue to hear people saying this, because I think there's always moments where you continue to be like, woo, like you need that motivation. We're resilient, but we need something sometimes to, this supportive community to keep us going, because we need to feel that that value that we know we have, and that validation that we don't need it from outside of ourselves. We just need it for ourselves. As long as you have it, then you can walk into a negotiation confidently. You can walk into any interview confidently. You can let people know what your number is confidently, regarding anything, because you know what your worth is. I think that's so powerful.
I agree. And then also that change in the narrative, like one advice I'm not giving my daughter is to work twice as hard.
No.
I don't want you to work twice as hard. And we have to change it within our community. We're not working twice as hard
at all.
I'm working twice. I'm going to work just like Karen.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I mean, like when you realize the game is rigged, it's like, here's the thing. Like we tell our kids, like, you got to work twice as hard. So I want you to go and you need to get into an Ivy, and we break our kids' backs to get into these schools, and then Karen them, they're paying for their kid to get into Stanford on the back end, and we don't even realize, like, we're not even not only is the game rigged, we're not playing the same game, right?
Right.
So we're talking about a racial wealth gap. We're talking about a access gap. We're talking about healthcare gaps. We're talking about education gaps, right? Like, it is not, I don't think people understand the level of systemic gaps that exist in this thing. And so it's not just this isolated experience in corporate, it's all the dots that are interconnected to it. And so there is an unlearning that has to happen around who you are and who you want to be and how you show up in this world, right? And I also think that as I begin to know my worth, like I said to y'all earlier, like, I showed up wanting to be validated, struggling for power. But the moment that I like gave it up, that I was like, listen, corporate is a part of my wealth strategy. Like, I'm just here. I'm Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I won't get fined. And the moment that I did that, it's interesting because now people are like, have you met Toni? She's so powerful. And it's interesting to me because I'm like, it's kind of funny that the moment that I release that is the thing, because you really, you got to believe it first. Right. Like, so the moment that I was like, I don't even need your validation. Thank you though for your compliment. Now people are like, they can't stop giving out the compliment. Right. Like, and it's like, it's an interesting thing. Right. But I also think that that's why I named the conference PowHER Moves, because I think there's a certain powernomics. And most of that is like a mental game that goes with how you move within this system.
Let's talk about because you hitting all the points right now. Let's talk about some of the adversity. Give us some examples for those who, there are people who listen. We got all kind of people listen to our podcast, all spectrum. Okay. And I just want to have you give kind of an example of what it's like in these corporate spaces as a Black woman, and your experience, because a lot of that is, like I just said, you got the qualifications and certifications, the education, but you also have lived experience. So give us an example of something where, it was some adversity towards you that you had to overcome kind of in your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't pick an adversity. Like, is it over? Is it over?
We'll have us all, look, I'm about to say one that won't have us all crying, because
exactly
we tapping into some trauma right here.
Yeah,
and that's sad that you said, is it over?
Yeah, like, I mean, I think that it just comes with the territory, you know what I mean? With being sort of counted out, right? And not fully being seen. But I would say, from an adversity perspective, I probably have struggled the most with kind of reconciling inequity, right? Like knowing that I am not equally paid, compensated. You know what I mean? Like I think that's probably the biggest adversity I've had to like stomach, right?
That moment when
Is
you look and you're like, hold on, I was supposed to be getting this
I
and they're
listen,
getting
I'll
this.
tell y'all, I'll give y'all a good example, right? So I was with a particular company and I had a role, a very big role. I really was the face of the region that I was leading. I had done a fantastic job for them. I was rated very high each year, the highest level you could be rated, highest level you could be in the 9 box before being in the 9 box, right? Like
Wow.
everything, right? And my peers were all 20 years my senior. And I was like the youngest person who had ever done that role for the company. And they were in executive ranks and I was not. I was like the step under being in executive ranks. And I remember just working extremely hard, and it felt like every time I did something, the finish line got moved, right? It would be this new excuse. And I remember I got a new VP, and she came in, and she probably hadn't even been our VP for like a month, and she was sort of like meeting with people and da 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 da. And she had knew me from like a past role, but she was not new to the company, but just new to the role as the SVP. And my boss at the time went to petition, like thinking, okay, this person's in the role. Let me see if I can petition to get Toni promoted to executive ranks, right? And she said, um, well, the thing that I'm hearing about Toni is that no matter what we give her, she'll never be satisfied. And it took everything in me not to cry in that meeting, not out of weakness, but out of anger. You know how when you get the ugly cry where like you just need you want to punch a hole in the wall,
Yes.
you so
Yes.
upset. And I remember, I don't know how I stomached to tell her this story, but I told her, I said, this is like going into a restaurant and sitting at the bar and telling someone, listen, I have a limited time. I'm going to be on my way. So I want to pay for my food up front so that I can kind of expedite getting my food. I did everything right. And I'm sitting there and people are arriving at the bar and they're ordering food and their food is coming out, but my food isn't, right? And then someone comes out and they go like, hey, how you doing? And she's like, well, let me pour you some water while you wait. And I drink my water, and then she comes back. She's like, "You still haven't gotten your food?" And I'm like, "No." And I'm starting to get a little anxious about it. And she's like, "Well, you know what? I'm gonna get you a free some bread and some appetizers, right?" So she brings me some bread and appetizers, and then the manager comes over. The manager does that one thing where they go like, "How's your service today?" And now you're frustrated because you're like,
Right.
"Listen, 8 people have come to the bar. They've all got their food." And the manager's like, you know what? I'm going to comp your appetizer. I'm going to give you this little appetizer for free. And you're like, thank you. That's so nice. And you feel for a little while like, well, at least I got an appetizer. That was nice, right? But then you start looking at your clock and you like, dang, people are leaving. I got to be where I need to be. And I still haven't gotten what I came to. You ask them to go get the manager. And the manager says, well, listen, we're busy. We got all of these excuses. We can't give you your food. And you start to get infuriated. But when you get infuriated, they say, well, ma'am, you really can just leave if you're not happy because this is the circumstance. That is the description of what they were really doing to me, right? Was they were giving me everything I didn't order and then saying I was unreasonable because the thing that I
Wow.
initially came to get, I didn't get. So it's like
Oh,
I came for a steak and potatoes. I paid for it in full. Everyone else got what they came to get and what they paid for. And now you're telling me I'm unreasonable. And if I'm unhappy, I can leave without the thing that I paid in full for.
wow.
That is the best example I have ever heard.
Because I'm passionate about my restaurant experience.
Yeah, right.
But that
And
is
I told her
feeling is
that,
so
and she
real.
was like, "Wow, I never thought about it like that."
Wow.
I still didn't get the promotion, but she understood what I was saying, you know? And it's unfortunate because I should not have had to leave to get what I paid for.
So it sounds like she thought you were being too ambitious, which is
Too
what
ambitious, those are the things that are described by us. Too aggressive, too
yes.
ambitious, too and you're looking at people who don't look like you get same thing without even having to ask. And it's a terrible feeling. I think that's the biggest adversity, is having to reconcile inequity and sit in it, knowing that you're marginalized.
Man.
I feel that
We've
so
gotten
much.
used to it. We've gotten used to it. It's kind of like, you know, you just be like, this is just how it is. This is what I come to expect, you know, of what the experience is going to be like. So then when you
Yeah.
get kind of this hint of like, maybe things will be better and it'll change. If it doesn't, you kind of go back into this space like, well, you know, that's just, you know, how it is. So I like what you were saying about how you're coming in, you know, the disrupting. You have to, because otherwise
Yeah.
it's gonna continue and continue and
Yeah.
continue
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And you know, when it does a mental thing to you when
Oh
you go
yeah.
through that and you go through it continuously. And so I guess one of my questions is, how do you incorporate self-care? Because one thing that I've done this year is I started therapy, and I didn't realize I needed
Yeah.
therapy for that trauma that I had gone through or that I was going
Yeah.
through in corporate.
Yeah, I think you definitely need to find wellness to unpack. You need to find a safe place to land. That's going to look differently for everyone. For some people, that is like exercise or some sort of like wellness activity, yoga, whatever. For some people, that's therapy. Um, for me personally, it's stillness, because I'm just naturally a busy person.
You are.
So it is stillness. I think anytime and also because by trade I do HR and DEI, and what I often tell people is like, I collect other people's trauma, right?
Yeah.
Besides, and then I'm also carrying my own as a Black female. So particularly for what I do, there are moments where I have like high anxiety, like I feel an uneasiness and I can't figure out what it is. And so one of the exercises that I have been practicing, it's just a simple exercise where I try to reconcile what I'm feeling, and I ask, is this someone else's or is this mine?
Mm.
So, because sometimes, you talk to your friends, you pick up a lot of other people's trauma. It's like a
You do.
collection of things that are happening. And because I do this work and I love Black women dearly, I also take on all of the things that they share. And you can, as an empath, you can kind of like end up with all of that on your heart. So for me, it's stillness. I think stillness helps me personally get closer to God, and then also reconcile whether or not what I'm feeling is mine to do with, fix, or something to do with it, or if it's someone else's and I need to give it back.
Ooh, give it back, girl. Give it back. That's
Give
what,
it
and that's
back.
what that was gonna be my follow-up, was like, when you find it, what do you do with it?
I give it back.
Yeah.
Here's your drama. Here you
Yeah.
go.
Take that.
Take that back. Yeah.
So my thing has been, don't project your issues onto me. I learned how
Yeah.
to say that to like colleagues. Like, I'm not going to even allow you to project that on
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I think it goes back to what you were saying, is like how we
Yeah.
were taught and everything.
Yes.
As I took a year off after some toxicity, and I remember talking to my parents about it, and they were nervous, they were
Yeah.
concerned, they were like, what are you gonna do? Like, how's this gonna go? And you gotta hurry up and go get you another job. And every time, and especially my dad, like he was really, really scared. Like he was, as a Black man coming from, his generation, what do you mean you ain't have a job? And I learned that I could not talk to him anymore about that.
Yeah.
I could not, because I was like, mentally, I can't take you in this. Like, I'm already trying to lean on the Lord, and my faith in this. And so you're making me more anxious as I hear your concerns. I got to just not talk to you about this particular subject. We talk about everything else, and I don't bring my stuff to you. So
yeah. So Aries, that I took what I called an adult gap year. And I, like I did a story with 40 Mag somewhere. You can probably Google it, but it's called, about my adult gap year. And I had gotten to a point in corporate where I was exhausted and I needed a break. So going back to what do you need in terms of, for me, it was stillness. And for me, it was an extended amount of stillness, a sabbatical, if you will. And like you, Aries, I had a lot of people like, right? Like, I can't believe, but what happens is people project their fears onto you for what they're not bold enough, pun intended, to do for themselves, right? And so a lot of people wanted me to reconcile the experience. Like literally I would be like, oh no, I'm taking an adult gap year. And then they would pause for me to explain and I wouldn't. Like, there is no explanation. And during that time, I traveled the world. So I share with you guys that I took my mom to Africa.
I saw all that art you brought back with you. I was like, whoa,
yeah. I got in my house. I took my mom to Africa. We arrived on Juneteenth and stood on the mountaintop of Table Mountain and overlooked South Africa on Juneteenth, and then ended our trip on her birthday, her 60th birthday. I will never get that time back. Right? Ever. Like, I will never get that time back. It is the most magnificent thing that I've ever been able to do to repay my mom, but it was the best way that I could possibly serve myself. My husband and I went to Bali with a group of friends. We also, we did some philanthropic work with kids over there while we were there. And I just got to travel and see family and read books and lay by the pool and go hug on my grandma while she was going through cancer. Like, I got to do everything I wanted to do. What did that teach me? What it taught me was, this is freedom.
Yes.
And so there was a shifting during that period of time that I couldn't go back to what I had done before and who I wanted to become and how I wanted to show up in corporate. And my sole purpose now really it functions around that sort of freedom and my finance. And y'all know, if you follow me, I'm big on financial freedom. I always talk about the business of death and estate planning and all those types of things.
Yes.
And so I think part of how we get free is there's a shifting of like power ownership, and most of that is mental, right? So for me, I just can't go back. I'm not the same Toni. And if people say it all the time, they like, you're not even the same person. I'm not. I left that person somewhere on top of a mountain in South Africa because
I love it.
I'm just not the same person anymore. I'm not.
And we got a couple more questions, but I wanted to, you kind of touched on it, like that really was your bold defining.
I was just
because I feel like you need this to happen, right? That moment had to happen so that you can feel confident when you take a leap of faith and or you go into something saying, I know who I am, I know what my value is and my worth is, and I'm willing to risk you saying no to me. I'm willing to risk you rejecting me and all that stuff. It's not going to affect me the way it would have before when I was working for the title and the this and the that. It makes you feel so much better inside of your soul, basically. For like, hey, if that's the best rejection I ever had, when you turn, because you don't want you want someone to want you for who you are and understand
What you
what you're
bring.
bringing to the table, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I think
I
that's a
think
big
it
deal.
was my boldest, most defining moment for my career. I also think that, I was sharing with you guys about reading The Well Choice by Dennis Kimbrough, who is a professor at Clark Atlanta. And this, I read the book before that time, so all these things were sort of lining up, right? I still think that God is doing a working inside of me, right? And I think a lot of times things are a test, and you either for me, one of the things that I think particularly that God is working in me on is um being able to trust and have a discernment about what is for me.
Yeah.
And I am getting so good and clear at that, that I know that on the other side of this, and I'm being able to connect the no's for the purpose of the yes, right? So I
Rejection
feel like
is God's redirection.
is God's
Yep.
redirection. And I think I am getting to the point now where, like, I'm almost around the bend for the big setup. Like, I know something's coming. I know God is doing a special working. And every time I pass a new test, I'm like, you thought I was gonna fail, didn't you? But like, nah, and so I think there was a changing, right? A mental shift. And I had always been teaching prior to this, right? Because remember, I've had the corporate T for over a decade, right? So I had always been different, right?
Right.
I just didn't know why I was different. I didn't really know how to tell you why I felt like I needed to tell you to move different. Now, today, I completely understand that. I understand why I'm different, you know?
Wow.
Um, and so I think, there's an awakening that has to happen, but part of it has to start with a shifting of your mindset around what's important, right? Because going back to what we were talking about unlearning, right? It's like we're taught to work twice as hard, do all these things, right? And then when we work twice as hard, we burn out. And then, but we have to look the part, right? Because we went to the fancies, PWI, HBCU, our sorority and fraternity, where we got to keep up with them, right? We got
Yep.
to do all of these things, right? So we go buy the biggest, most expensive house in the whitest neighborhood that we can buy. We both drive luxury vehicles. We do all these things that keep us in
And in
bondage, in
debt.
my
Bondage.
opinion,
And
and,
more
and
debt.
in debt. And so when you're up against this point of feeling inadequate, you don't even have an escape to say, this is not for me, right?
Right.
And so it further perpetuates how deeply how systemic racism does a work on our life, right? And so I think in order for us, there's so many things we got to unbutton. So I have given so much back, and it's not to say I feel like my parents did a tremendous job. They did the best they knew.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They did the best, with the hand that they had and what they knew to give me, right? And I'm a first generation college student. So, and my husband's a second. His parents are both college educated, but they did the best that they could, right? You work a good day, and my husband's parents, they worked in state and city jobs for till they retired. They got the gold watch, pension, stuff that don't even exist for us today. And
Right.
so their experience and their life, it wasn't that they were wrong. It was what worked for them then. That was the
At
way
that
out
time.
at that time. And what works for me today may not necessarily work for my son. I always tell people I am trying to raise a good global citizen with full emotions who one day will perhaps, I hope, be a great partner to someone, right? And so
Yes.
that's the overarching goal. Who he becomes, if he want to be a rock star in a guitar band, if he wants to be, I hope that his life is positioned for him to do that, but do that in a way where he serves the world, not what I want for him. Not that you have to be a doctor, you got to go to this school, you got to go to, I would love for him to grow up and choose more house and do the things that but his life is his own. I think that's the biggest unlearning that I've had as a mother, right?
Same,
Life is not
girl.
my life.
Especially raising these boys in this environment. And I think I had that reckoning as well of, I tell my boys, I'm like, you don't have to have a job. By the time you graduate, you might be running your own business. You know,
right? Yeah,
for real.
the possibilities are endless. Whatever you can think, you can be. But I also tell them, I'm going to support you as long as just do whatever you do with your whole heart. Make sure it's your thing, that you're not just being lazy and saying, I'm just going to settle for this thing. Be whatever it's gonna. If you're gonna be an artist, be the best. You know, like go for the gusto with it. So I love that about you and what you're doing. You know that we really could talk forever, but we're not gonna
all
do that.
day.
Okay,
we're gonna bring
look,
we're gonna bring you back. But you mentioned Dr. Dennis Kimbrough and his book as a resource, but what are some other, whether it's podcasts, books, whatever, things that we could give our listeners to
because you're so resourceful, and we know leaders are readers, and you are a reader.
I love so many books, but the two books that I like the most career-wise, because we're talking about careers,
okay,
is I love How Exceptional Black Women Lead.
I don't know that one.
Me either.
I am good friends with her. I love her deeply. I know she tired of me plugging her.
Ava do
no,
not Ava.
Avis Jones.
Avis, Beaver. Yes.
And she is fantastic. She sort of shifted her direction, but you can see on like I think she's on Roland Martin. She's like a contributor and different things like that. But she wrote that book, and it's sort of like a hidden gem. So I actually buy that book a lot for like young mentees. Because I literally was in the middle of reading, and it's like, girl, I wish I had wrote this book. That's how great it is, right? So I love that book, How Exceptional Black Women Lead. I also think The Secrets of Six-Figure Women. There's a shifting for me in terms of negotiating. I've always been a pretty good negotiator, and I have been, featured a lot around negotiating tips, but when I read that book, the greatness in that book was like when she said to me, because I was like touting out, like I've been in the six figures for a long time, right? And when she said like you can be an under earner at any, as long as if you're not earning at your full potential, you're an under earner.
Yeah, because
I had
like
kind of
that early six figures. Or six figures goes a long way.
It's a long way before you get to seven, right?
Exactly.
And so, but I feel like that's like the holy grail. If I could just get six figures, and I always be like, well, where exactly on the six-figure track are you?
Exactly. Just get to that first one, or
because that 101, versus that 501, it's a big difference. Exactly. And so, The Secrets of Six-Figure Women is a fantastic book. It's kind of an older rendition. I always wish they would like kind of do a newer edition. They've done some updates to it, but definitely purchase the newest edition. But it still reigns true from when she originally wrote it. If you haven't read it, it's a really good read. In sort of that lane and vein.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yes.
Don't worry, we'll have to bring you back in our new season, because it's way too much to go into, and we could go into various lanes for a long time. But again, we appreciate you. Where are you directing people to go find you? We know we already talked about the corporate tea, but I'm like,
listen, I mean, on social, I'm at the corporate tea on all social channels, right? I mean, I'm real easy to find. Google me. That's what the kids say. Yeah, but you also can visit thecorporatea.com, and then it connects you to all the things that I'm doing, and all the business endeavors I'm involved in, where I speak and those types of things. It points you in every direction. So I'm just so happy y'all had me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. Thank you for coming. This is just a a tidbit of the information that you have and that you've experienced. So
yes,
thank you for sharing it. Thank you for taking the time, Toni. And we honor you as our Bold Black Girl of the Month. As we close out of 2020, it's like drop mic, boom.
And listen, let's be clear. I needed a good end to 2020 because 2020 has dragged us by our edges. Okay. I mean,
but you know what? As it has dragged us, I think the clarity we said we wanted with the beginning of this year, it definitely gave us what we asked for.
Everybody was talking about Vision 2020. Well,
did we get vision or not?
Did we get it or did we not get it? Y'all said, y'all say y'all want a vision. Let me give you a vision.
I got a vision for you.
Listen, and I told y'all I thrive on stillness. So the stillness that we have gotten this year has also revealed to me that I have a spirit of busyness that I need to rebuke, and that I can still be as efficient sitting right down in my doggone house. So I definitely think it has taught us all some very valuable lessons.
Yes.
Listen, Toni, the previous episode we just recorded, we talked about rest, and we said a rested woman is an unstoppable woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a ministry in and of itself.
Just take a doggone nap and sleep. Get some rest, and not just sleep, rest. Because I mean, let's be clear, rest and sleep are not the same.
Not the same.
Yeah.
Well,
so I'm with you.
You are in our rankings of our Bold Black Girls of the Month now. We crown you and give you all the flowers right now. And we can't wait to see what God does for you as you keep going. And we know you're going to be killing it. So thanks again.
Thank you, Toni.
Guys.
See ya.